We are now, today, exactly 50 years for the Yom Kippur War. This is the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War that happened in Israel. Yom Kippur War is really a personal war for me in many ways because I was born a year before Yom Kippur, and you know every Israeli their birthday is either before or after something. So my war is Yom Kippur, but also it's not just because I was born around there. It's also because it has been my struggle all my life. Yom Kippur was the day that I struggled with the most. It's not surprising because it's the holiest day. If you are an observant Jew, Yom Kippur is of course ground zero. But if you're not, you really, really struggle with that day because it requires you to, even if you don't participate, to respect it somehow. Especially if you live in Israel, that nobody drives. I don't know if anybody has been to Israel on Yom Kippur. Is there anybody here that have been in Israel? Has been. Francis and Liz too. So you know that it's a unique phenomenon that everything shuts down. Even the Arab population, the Christian population, the Muslim, the Christian population respected, and secular Jews. At least until what's going on right now. There's a movie Golda now that is out, and everybody talks about that for the 50th anniversary. Anybody saw the movie yet? No. You've seen it? Yes? You have? Okay. Good? Good movie? Okay. No. One says no. Okay, well, 50 Jews. Of course, you can like it or not, but I think I didn't see it, but I've lived it. So what we say about, I think the movie at least kind of clears Golda's name and responsibility on that day, that she was blamed that she didn't listen that she did not recruit the military, even though she felt like she wanted to, but she had to listen to Moshe Dayan. Moshe Dayan was not just a defense minister, he was like a god in Israel after the Six-Day War. So how can she go against him? She was blamed for this war a long time, but she's being, I think, cleared. It was a special moment in Israel because when I was born under Golda, Golda Meir was the prime minister. Think of that, the historical jump that for my family and many other families that came to Israel, and even the United States did not have a woman president yet, right? So in Israel in 1970s, to have a woman prime minister, we've jumped 2,000 years into modernity, into equality. And this is really where the struggle is. Why? Because there are two forces that operate here. It's the secular Zionism and religious Zionism. These are the two forces that battle in Israel until this day. Golda, of course, belonged to the secular Zionism. And what I did is I divided what I want to say to three parts. One is to acknowledge that this is the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, and then talk to you a little bit about what's going on now in Israel with all the judicial reforms, but also then link it together to what it means. Why are we talking about it today on Yom Kippur in the synagogue? So I know a lot of rabbis are talking about this across the world, but I want to give kind of a just clarification of a few things. So what happened with secular Zionism is that they brought so many good things to Israel. And that jump of 2,000 years into modernity brought in one instant equality that traditional Judaism carried in the diaspora for thousands of years. I would say definitely some chauvinism and some, of course, the idea that we have the idea of the men as the primary and women are secondary. Secular Zionism totally erased that, and women worked and fought and guarded and kibbutzim and did everything. That is a wonderful, wonderful achievement. You can't even, it wouldn't have happened otherwise. But on the other hand, secular Zionism also erased certain things that from the Jewish people that we should have maintained. Of course, when we talk about on Rosh Hashanah, being outwardly Jewish, recognizably Jewish, and of course everything else that stemmed from it that you feel obligated for the mitzvot. So they brought beautiful progress, but they did regress in some other ways or neglected other things. Many people who came to Israel from Arab countries or North African countries were were forced to become more secular and more Western. So, which is again, this is just what it is. There's good and bad to it. But what's going on now is that it's brewing, and those who had to give up their religious or at least traditional affiliation and feelings and faith want to practice it now. But the secular Zionism has been so entrenched in Israel. Of course, this was the establishment for many years. So it's a battle. So the battle keeps until today. And the question is, 50 years ago, when the Yom Kippur War started, there was something that in Israel happened that between Golda and Moshe Dayan, the government and the military, that something was not communicated well, right? There was too much of, it's not just me using that word, but hubris. Hubris that after the 6-Day War, we won against all these Arab countries. For sure we can do that again. And more importantly, they will not even try again, right? So there was this overconfidence in ourselves. And I think you're starting to understand where I'm going with this also for today, because this day, what we're doing today is to come in front of God and we said, we're small. We're small. We don't have overconfidence. We're sinners. We're imperfect vessels. And that humility that comes from not necessarily just saying I'm bad, I'm not good, but just to be authentic. Authenticity. That's the best humility. So what's going on now in Israel with the judicial reform, I think 99% of people that I speak to in America don't really get one point. There's one point that they don't understand, or actually it's one, but it really split to two. People think that, first of all, before that, the half of the Jewish people lived in Israel, right? And they're struggling right now a lot. So, and you know, we have to give credit to this battle, because it is in one sense, it's very hard because it's going to the core of things. But on the other hand, both sides wave flags. It's that nobody is killing anybody. I mean, you have to put it in perspective, right? And both sides know that they're part of this, and the other side is not going away. I personally belong to both camps. I have 1 foot here and 1 foot here. I grew up secular in a very liberal environment, but it was an environment that really included everybody. We didn't have that struggle with our religious neighbors or anybody. It was very diverse, and everybody kind of live and let live. So personally, for me, I see both sides. And I agree with things on both sides, and I'll explain. I preface by saying that these are the two sides. We're all Zionists. Everybody in Israel, pretty much, I would assume, if they live in Israel, they're Zionists. But that religious and secular side, this is where it is. It's in the people, and this is what, from this vantage point, it's hard to see the bottom line, that it really is between secularism and religion. It's not about the judicial reform. The judicial reform, this same reform that is going on, right, and they're striving for, those people who are in the opposition now, when they were in the coalition, they wanted the same changes. And this is the change. I'm going to bring a biblical source before I get into it. Moses. The story of Moses, when he came out of the palace for the first time, if you recall the story, and he saw his people. He knew he was a Hebrew, but he realized that they're slaves, right? And they're being oppressed. And he saw one Egyptian man hitting a Hebrew man, right? And he, of course, came to the rescue of the Hebrew man, or the weak, I guess, and killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sand. He came out the second day, and he saw two Hebrews fight, right? This is exactly the situation of where it is now. It's unbelievable. The Torah, 3,500 years ago, uses the same exact two words. The Hebrew, when he asked them to stop fighting, why are you fighting? Why are you hitting each other? One of them said to him, to Moses, who put you, misamcha, who appointed you, Sar v'shofet aleinu. Okay, Sar v'shofet, a minister and a judge upon us. Unbelievable. This is where it is. It's the judge and the minister. This is the fight. Who is going to have the upper hand? Right? And of course we know nobody should have the upper hand, because then it's not a balanced system. You have to have both. It's like the body and the soul. You know, yes, one pulls this way and one pulls, but they have to be in harmony. So Moses leaves because he understands that if this is the struggle, then he can't really do anything about it. They have to figure it out themselves. And what essentially that person says, very interesting, Sar and Shofet, who put you as a minister and a judge? What's the problem here? They knew Moses definitely came from the palace. He had some power. He had some gravitas, right? But what bothered that person, if you look deeper, why are you making two branches of government one? You can't be a minister and a judge. You have to decide. If you're a judge, when you come to the situation, you should have separated between the Egyptian and the Hebrew. But you also was the executive. You killed him and you buried him. So you took upon yourself all three branches of government. And this is the problem when you do that. Right now in Israel, these there really are two branches of government, even though we want to believe that there are three. Biblically, Judaism has three branches of government, and the American system is influenced by it: the king, the high priest, and the prophet. But what's going on technically in Israel, the parliament is then governed by the coalition. So it really becomes one branch. So you really have the minister and the judicial. The problem, there are two main issues if you want to remember this. One is that right now, technically, the high court in Israel, the Supreme Court in Israel, selects itself. So imagine if in America, the Supreme Court would have selected itself. The system is in a way allows them to have veto and also to select the people that they want. There are 9 members of the Judicial Selection Committee, and 3 of them are Supreme Court judges, and 2 of them are from the Law Committee. And the Law Committee works with the Supreme Court. So they always have majority of 5. And even if they didn't, let's say the 2 lawyers vote something else or for somebody else, the Supreme Court in Israel still can veto who goes in. So they select, this is problem number 1. And the second problem is that since the early 90s, the system is that the Supreme Court, and it's not by law, it is by almost like judicial culture that developed that the Supreme Court can judge everything. There's nothing beyond the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, and so that is that idea of that everything is judgeable by the Supreme Court then gives them de facto the last word on everything. It's coming to a head right now because what the government is saying, yes, you are the judge, I'm the minister, but there are certain things in order to keep the balance. There has to be a place where the judge cannot enter, right? It's the authority of the government. So in America, again, it's the same kind of debate, but can the Supreme Court intervene in everything, or there's certain constitutional areas that they can't, right? And we know that in America they can't. But in Israel, they can override, and I'm sure you've heard the word override, everything. And that's how it developed. The government saying, at least stay away from basic law. Basic law are the constitution, the quasi-constitution in Israel. Israel didn't have time between all the wars to form a constitution, and I think it will take years and years to do that because of all the influences of the diaspora, and the newly established Israel is based on British law, Turkish law, very little on Jewish law. So it would take a long time to bring it all together. The Supreme Court is going, they met in the full 15 justices quorum to decide if what the government just decided to restrict the Supreme Court power is actually legal. Do you understand the crazy situation that is now, it's entangled? It's like a catch-22. The Supreme Court has to decide, basically, in a case that the government is claiming against it. So we're in it right now, and it's a big deal. And the reason that I'm talking about it here is because the whole world is talking about it, and it's very important. I think it's important for you to understand the nuances. There's a lot of overlapping categories between the religious and the secular, because a lot of people also say, oh, well, you know, it's an Ashkenazi Sephardi, it's people who, you know, the establishment, they have the power and they hold on to it. It's true. It's partially true. It's not the whole picture. Really, the bottom line, as we said, is religious, secular. But of course, there's overlapping groups. One of the things, and the people who have elected this government, one of the things that they're bothered by is that there is an establishment that seemed to be kind of one-sided. Out of the 15 Supreme Court justices, there are 13 Ashkenazis, secular, right? And one Sephardi and one Arab. So when they asked Aaron Barak, who used to be the president of the, in a recent interview, not long ago, how can it be that for all these years you couldn't find, you know, a Sephardi Supreme Court judge? And he said, unfortunately, he said that because then it brought people out to the streets. He said, we were looking, but we couldn't find. It's on record. It's an interview that was just a few months ago. So there's again, there's some hubris here in all parts of the conduct here that keeps appearing. So basically, this is the main issue. It's more cultural, and those who protest against limiting any power of the Supreme Court don't want the secular court to change. Because the court itself right now is very liberal and very secular. So it balances a lot of things. However, when it comes to religious decisions and other decisions that the government is coming up with that are more conservative or to the right, they keep blocking it. So the Supreme Court blocked 22 cases, big cases. I'm not going to get into what the cases are, but 22 cases in the early 90s. That's a lot of cases, a lot of laws to strike out from the government by the Supreme Court. Just to give you an idea about the judgeability or the power of the Supreme Court in Israel. In America, how many cases come in front of them? You would know. The what?
I don't know the number, but not too many.
Not too many, 100, about 100. That's the 100 and 120 cases. Do you know how many cases come in front of the Supreme Court in Israel? Throw a number.
1,000.
1,000. Oh, it could be a fundraiser. Who wants more? 1,000. Okay. Do I hear 2,000? 2,000. 12,000. 12,000 cases come in front of the Supreme Court in Israel every year. It just doesn't make sense. Because the culture became that everybody knows the Supreme Court in Israel will have the last word in everything. So really, I hope you don't see this as for me, I'm not trying to be one-sided or the other. I'm not. I really am, because I'm a beneficiary of both sides, and I know the value of both sides. Religion can be can easily become very extreme. Easily, you have to have that secular mindset that sees value in laws and decency, without giving accounting necessarily to the supreme God. I lived it. I know it. The secular world that I grew up in was beautiful. Was wonderful. Of course, it has its downsides. And the religious. Now that I'm a religious Zionist, I see the other side of course. I can't remove God from the picture. But I know that these two sides are in it. So to kind of bring it all together, I hope it resonated with you that this is really about religious and secular, not really anything else, because it's really not a Sephardi Ashkenazi at the end of the day, because there are many people on both sides. The Justice Minister Levine is not a Sephardi. You know, the Rotman, who is the head of the Judicial Committee, is not a Sephardi. And on the other hand, I have Sephardi friends they go and demonstrate against this reform. So it's not about that. It is about where we place our faith. So it really is an issue that will continue with us, because we've had this in our life from the beginning, right? We just talked about Moses, that the claim was there are two sides here, and they should stay the two sides, because we need that balance. The Talmud says that after the Maccabees won and against the Greeks and reestablished the temple, the Talmud says this was the beginning of the end. Because 200 years later, approximately, the temple was destroyed. But already in 4 CE, we stopped having kings. The kingship lineage was curtailed then. So it was about 65 years before the temple was destroyed. So the question is why? Why would the Talmud say that that it was the beginning of the end? They just reestablished, they took back the temple and rededicated it. This is the Hanukkah story. How can it be the beginning of the end? Why? For the same reason. When you go into something that is not yours, you have that this feeling that you can go into. We talked about yesterday that we need to learn from the animals not to take too much, right? Just what we need. But what happened is the Hashmonaim, after they won the battle, the military battle against the Greeks, they were Kohanim. They were from the priestly family. They took over the kingship. They became the Hashmonean lineage that was the king, the kingship. When they did that, when they took both branches of government and made them one, that's the beginning of the end. So in our lives, in Yom Kippur, I'm bringing it to us now, we need to know our place. We need to know who we are, and we're not God. We're human, and we're imperfect. And if we come with that humility that we don't run the world, and there are different, God has diverse groups, and people in this world. So we can only do our part. And if we come with that humility, this achieves Yom Kippur's mission to bring us back to ourselves, to God, and to our humility.